You have traveled through these time tunnels. I mean, can you describe for us what's the feeling, what's the sensation? It's like traveling in a subway or traveling in a kiddie slide at Disneyland. What do you feel when? Just describe. I mean, you are in a room, then you see a portal, a door. You open the door, you walk into the tunnel.
That's right.
You jog through the tunnel.
No, you walk into the tunnel at the entrance, and then you are propelled by the energies of that tunnel, standing upright, essentially, down through the tunnel to the other end. You don't touch the walls.
What would happen if you poke your finger through the wall? You would lose a finger?
No, basically nothing, because they seem to be quite hard-wise, energy-wise. They were quite hard. You might get a slight shock, as I remember, because we tried that sort of thing in a number of things. And no, it didn't cause us to disintegrate or create other problems.
But how will your feet touch the tunnel, or they were not touching you? They were flying in?
You were floating in a, I won't say a bubble. You were floating in essentially the center of this tunnel, which was about 8 feet diameter.
8 feet diameter.
And you would flow down that thing, and when you got to the other end, you would land on dry ground, assuming you were scheduled to land on dry ground.
Al, did you take your graffiti can with you? Did you spray paint some signs? Al was here.
No, but I think it would have been interesting if I had. Or take a camera. We were not allowed to take cameras, except I think once, and that was into the Mars operation.
Why was this? Because of security reasons?
Partly security, and partly in many of these operations, they do not want to disturb the balance of time. I won't say the balance of nature, but the balance of time. And to take a picture of something at the other end and bring it back here creates an anomaly. You can go see it. You can move an object. But if you bring an object back here, you better be careful about what it is you're bringing back and what the consequences are over there.
Preston Nichols is, in his book, is talking about such an artifact being a witness, a metaphysical witness, a piece of an object that is used as target matter to target witchcraft curse against you, a piece of your hair in the hands of a magician, or a piece of a photograph that would help him direct the curse toward you, or some of these fancy hardware or human beings, as you and your brother have been walking relay line plugs as...
Yeah. No, a witness can be used, and it can be used in less exotic hardware than the Montauk operation. Any basic psychotronics hardware uses a witness of some type, whether it be a biological witness or a photograph, in order that that individual's energies can be focused or transmitted to another end, or somebody can use it if they want to on the dark side. They can use it to hit you with some very negative energies. But they have to have a witness of some kind to the person they wish to hit. Whether it be beneficial,
right, target frequency,
exactly,
target location, target time, and so on.
Whether it be a beneficial thing, or whether it be a very negative hit trying to put the person out of commission.
Anything else interesting about the tunnel? How you would get out of it? How you would find it on the other end? I mean, being on Mars in the underground?
You would be given very careful coordinates and markings. When you got there, you marked the spot, and the tunnel would disappear.
With spray paint again?
Spray paint, chalk, crayons, whatever. And at the appropriate time, which you knew in advance, the tunnel would reappear in the same spot. And you would just re-enter the tunnel, and instead of it flowing that way, they reversed the phase, so it pulled you back to the station.
I see. Were there people lost because they couldn't find their tunnel back?
I remember that there were a few lost. There wasn't many. And there were also one or two cases where the tunnel broke with somebody. Electronic failure, if you will.
And everything was lost.
Yeah, and their atoms were scattered.
Appendages of that tunnel? Any...
Good point. There were. The tunnels, in theory, ran straight through to the target area. But it was known, and nobody knew the answers to this, they created occasionally side tunnels in which the orders were very strict. Under no circumstances do you ever go down the side tunnels.
Were there any luring objects?
No, but there were...
take the fateful step.
There were noises, there were indications that somebody was down, some of them, and of course this is what got Duncan in trouble. He decided to go down one of those side tunnels.
What did he find there?
Aliens. I had to go rescue him.
He aliens or she aliens?
Damned if I know now. Anyway, we had to go back and get something they wanted and return it to them, and then they let him loose, and they weren't going to let me loose either. And I said, no, wait a minute. If there's anything you want, one of us has to go back and get it. And they said, yes, there is something we want. And I said, well, why don't you send me, and so forth. They agreed on that. I said, you got Duncan as a hostage. We'll be back. Tell us what it is you want. And they told us, and we got it and brought it back, and then they released both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
this was that.
This is
Dr. Nichols tells in his book that crystal charging device
right,
in their ship that got sucked into the underground of the moon.
Essentially, that's what it was. They wanted it.
So basically, to wrap this whole story up, I've never ceased to be fascinated, to be amazed at the, never-ending cornucopia of secret projects, of this fountain of secret technologies that keeps coming from the underground bases. What Al has been telling us here for several years is the story, or some of the stories that he witnessed in one of these many dozens, if not hundreds, of underground bases. We're talking for a period of 50 years ago in time. There were 25 Phoenix technology locations based on the number of Ampletron tubes, 100 tubes that they built, 4 per site. But there were dozens, if not hundreds, of other locations doing mind control experiments, doing genetic crossbreeding, hybrids, and other experiments, doing God knows what. So my feeling is that the ruling elite, the Illuminati elite of the planet, would always like to have a technological lead of between 20, 50, but usually between 50 and 100 years ahead of the mass circulated technologies. The secret technologies, the secret knowledge, the hermetic knowledge, is usually a century ahead of the mass circulated, of the mass usage knowledge and technology. These stories that the British landed on the moon at the end of the 19th century, in the 1890s, that I've been researching personally myself, I'm more and more becoming convinced that they are physically and engineeringly possible and feasible. And many other such countless stories about occult, metaphysical, and alchemical schools that the children of the elite get their head start in visiting. These are schools where probably kids are taught in a one-to-one, face-to-face environment with a teacher. Nothing to do with the public school system of debilitating the American children. Interestingly enough, I mean, I'm coming from a country, from Bulgaria. Little Bulgaria fights with Romania for the place next to the last place in Europe, for the place ahead of Albania as the poorest country in Europe. However, fortunately enough, we were fortunate to have the German education system. It was copied and moved lock, stock, and barrel, as they say. And I mean, my feeling, comparing our education system in Bulgaria, in math, literature, and languages and everything, with the American public school system, is that I mean, this is a third world country's education system, which was done on purpose to this country to keep the large masses of the population ignorant exactly of these secret projects that are going on beneath the surface, literally, and in a, how should I say, in a non-literal sense.